Hello, people. And yes, this September has been pretty much the best September ever for Bitcoin. Now, that's to assume that nothing catastrophic happens in the next 2 days. And I'm going to knock on some wood to make sure that does not happen. Now, the best September up until now has actually been in 2016. And in that time, in 2016 September, Bitcoin was actually up 6% for the month. Well, we started this month off at 58K. It is now almost 66K for a gain of roughly $8,000. That's about 13% gain over the entire month of September. And it has been a great September for us. So those of you who actually thought it was going to be Rectember, suckers, you got pwned if you sold Bitcoin or are attempting to buy back right now, because indeed the bull market is not over. In fact, it's just getting started, no matter what your charts have actually said. We had a very bullish September, according to September standards, up 12-13%, not like up 50-60%, but that is definitely positive and it can be easily deemed bullish. And you know what? We might have 1 or 2 more days to go up or go down. But recently, Bitcoin has been gaining at the rate of about $1,000 a day. Not like killing it, not like super awesome, but a fair gain each and every day. Up until like the weekend generally doesn't produce anything, but hopefully we get to pretty close to 70K by the close of September, which would actually close us up, nearly 22%, 23%. That would be incredible. But even if we close only up like 12-13%, that would be our best September ever. And of course, October is usually a lot better than September. Now, if we look at the 4-year graph for last year, October, November, December, from mid-October onwards, that's when the bull run really started. If we go back 2 months ago, we'd have to wait for another year because remember, that didn't really start until like September, October 2017. You add 8 years onto that, that would be September, October 2025. So the time is kind of like a little bit tilted. The last bull run really started in October, November 2020 and then lasted really until April. Now, there was, in 2021, in October, there was that Bitcoin high, but the altcoins didn't really follow Bitcoin. That was more of an SBF pump. The real pump was in a really late 2020 and very early 2021. So I think we're more following that chart, but we're probably going to be slightly later than where we were 4 years ago. So don't be surprised if we really don't hit that parabolic stage until about November or December, because I think we're setting up to be a little bit later than that, partially because of the election, of course. Because people are nervous about the election, and more than like who actually wins, they want stability, and not knowing who's going to win is going to cause more fear than if like one of the candidates actually won. So basically, I do expect if Donald Trump wins, we'll get an immediate pump, but if Harris wins, we'll get a pump, but it might be delayed for a couple of weeks, which really doesn't matter all that much unless you really need money in the next few weeks for some odd reason. Now, if you do, then obviously, it matters. But if you don't, I don't actually think it matters who actually wins this particular election for crypto. So if you look at it, the rate cuts are going to come in November. And besides, by the way, the next rate cut's going to come after the election. And we might get a Christmas rate cut in December, bringing us down a full 100 points for the year. And next year, they're definitely getting like 100 more points. So we're going to bring back down to like very close to the neutral rate. The economy is going to be good because of that. The oil price, like I mentioned before, China, once again, demand is going down because basically their economy is horrible. Russia, yes, they're trying to push the price of gold up, but they're basically trying to find any way to avoid sanctions at this point. And their economy is pretty close to collapse as well. When a country has to jolt up its interest rate by double digits overnight twice in 2 successive years, that means its economy is not doing so well. Because of their autocratic style of dictatorship, they can actually do that without like having too many people notice or having like their economy completely fall apart, which is not something the United States can actually do. But because of their style of economy, government, they can actually do that, but you can't do that forever. So those two countries, that's why actually the price of gold is up so much. It's mainly because China and Russia is pushing it up because they're desperately trying to de-dollarize, but their own economies aren't going so great right now, and that's going to collapse sometime soon. China soon with their retail bubble because they have a lot of homes, no one actually living in them, and the government is basically forcing banks to take on worse and worse debt. It's kind of like the American collapse of '08, but like on a much bigger scale in China because the governments are actually forcing banks to do that to prop up their retail market. And like 60-70% of Chinese people's wealth is actually in the real estate. So if that crashes, like all of their wealth gets wiped out. Compare that with maybe like 25 in the United States, and you can see why it's a much bigger problem for China. And their retail market compared to the average like wage of people is like way more out of disproportion than ours are. Like in the United States, like a regular house might cost maybe like depending on where you live, I think nationwide $400,000 or $500,000. That actually might be like 7-8 years of an actual salary, whereas in China it's like 30, 40, 50 years of an actual salary, and to the point where it's just a lot of people just can't afford it, anything more than like a little cube somewhere in a building. So basically, like Chinese wealth can get completely wiped out with their real estate, and it will sooner or later. And once again, I like to remind you that one way you can tell when that's about to happen is if they start devaluing the yuan against the dollar massively, because that's basically them trying to boost up the exports, provide more jobs, and that's when like that economy is going to go into a death spiral, and it could unravel within a year or two, or even within a year of when they start doing that. Russia is really hard to predict. Their economy is a huge mess with the Ukraine war. The longer they fight it, the worse it is. We don't really know what's happening on the internals. I know like there's a lot of people unhappy with Putin right now over there, but they can't really say so because they'll get shot by the Secret Service over there. Like I think the price of gold within like 4 or 5 years is probably going to take a little bit of a downturn because those two countries aren't going to be so strong enough to actually keep propping it up at this point. And I do think consumer confidence will actually return. A lot of the big financial institutions are actually selling some of the gold futures right now because the price is so high. But like if they turn away from gold, they might actually get into the virtual currencies thing to either like de-dollarize or avoid sanctions, and that's going to boost Bitcoin up. And even if they don't give up on the price, bring the price of gold up, I think they're going to filter some of that money into virtual assets very soon, and that'll boost the market up too. So like there's a lot of foreign factors that would actually boost the market up. Domestically, I think people are going to regain confidence in the economy since the CPI is actually coming down along with the price of oil. And also the rate cuts have brought the interest rate down, which makes bonds less competitive against crypto and stocks. So I do think October is going to be quite good. We've just had the best September ever. I definitely can see next year riding high. So that's the news for today. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe, hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.